2021-22 Florida citrus season began with a quiet optimism, a hope that as we began to move forward from the unprecedented challenges of a global pandemic, we may also begin to see hope for healing within our own industry. October saw us all come together for the first time in more than a year and a half when the Putnam family graciously opened the gates of their ranch and welcomed growers and industry friends to the Florida Citrus Mutual Crop Estimate Luncheon. This event serves as a valuable reminder that we are all in this together and that the work that we're doing here at Mutual is more important than ever. To that end, we got back on the road and in the air this year, traveling to Tallahassee and Washington, D.C. to catch up with those elected officials and regulators who continue to support the Florida citrus industry. In Tallahassee, we worked with Senator Danny Burgess and Representative Colleen Burton on the Citrus Recovery Act, modifying Chapter 601 and updating the structure of the Florida Citrus Commission. The changes implemented by this bill, which has been signed into law by Governor DeSantis, allow the Commission to remain effective and efficient in the changing landscape of our industry. We also worked with Senator Ben Albritton and Representative Lawrence McClure on nutrient application rates bills allowing site-specific nutrient management for citrus. This legislation is a critical component of ensuring that citrus producers are able to continue to comply with Florida best management practices while providing the proper nutrition to HLB-impacted groves. Along with these priority pieces of legislation, Mutual worked diligently with policymakers to secure funding for continued research, marketing, and support of the Florida citrus industry. We are especially grateful to Representative Josie Tomko, Chairwoman of the House Appropriations Subcommittee on Agriculture and Natural Resources, and Senator Ben Albritton, Chairman of the Senate Appropriations Committee on Agriculture, Environment, and General Government, for their continued support of our industry through the appropriations process, as well as Governor DeSantis for his willingness to invest in our industry. This year's appropriations included $8 million for basic and applied research through CRDF and the Kraft Foundation, $17 million for Florida Department of Citrus marketing programs, $6.2 million for the Citrus Health Response Program, $2 million for the Citrus Inspection Trust Fund, $3 million for the expedited propagation of potential greening-resistant varieties such as the Donaldson, and $1 million for new varieties development. These allocations equate to a cost savings of more than 84 cents per box for Florida citrus growers, and for that we say thank you to all of our supporters in Tallahassee. Speaking of friends in Tallahassee, we would be remiss if we didn't mention Senate President Wilton Simpson. President Simpson continues to be engaged with our industry and our needs, and we look forward to supporting him in his bid for Florida Commissioner of Agriculture. We kicked off that support when we co-hosted a luncheon honoring candidate Simpson in December. Moving from Tallahassee to Washington, D.C., Mutual staff and board members were once again able to meet face-to-face with members of Congress as well as regulatory leaders to continue to inform and educate them on critically important issues, including preventing the inclusion of harmful tax provisions in the President's budget that would have eliminated the step-up in 1031 like-kind exchanges, working to protect the domestic grapefruit growers against lesser quality standards issued for foreign producers by the USDA, and ensuring the continued availability of a reliable and affordable workforce through an effective H-2A program in the face of proposed changes to the adverse effect wage rate by the United States Department of Labor. We also continued to share the importance of Florida citrus and the challenges we face today when both Congressman G.T. Thompson of Pennsylvania and U.S. Senator John Boozman of Arkansas came to visit. As the Republican leader of the House Agriculture Committee and the ranking member of the U.S. Senate Committee on Agriculture, Nutrition, and Forestry, respectively, Congressman Thompson and Senator Boozman will both play key roles in writing the 2023 Farm Bill. While we have been very successful in securing funding for greening research in the last two farm bills, it is critical that we maintain that support moving forward. Mutual President Glenn Beck and I made a trip to the Capitol in 2022 to meet with members of our congressional delegation and others to highlight several of the issues most important to Florida citrus right now. Conversations with Senator Marco Rubio, Congressman Vern Buchanan, Mario Diaz-Balart, Scott Franklin, and Darren Soto, and Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz focused on the need for the inclusion of citrus in the upcoming Farm Bill, as well as an FDA action on lowering the BRICS level. The relationships that Florida Citrus Mutual has established and cultivated over the years continue to be vital to our success in Washington. One of the keys to these relationships is to support those who support us. The best way to do that is not just by writing checks, although that is important, but it's by getting out and showing our support in person. This year, Mutual held fundraisers for Congressman Vern Buchanan, Scott Franklin, and Greg Steube, and hosted visits from Congresswoman Kat Cammack and Congressman Darren Soto. Back at home, a common theme this season was teamwork. I sat down early in the season with leaders from most of Florida's major citrus organizations to discuss priorities for the 2021-22 legislative session, and that channel of communication remained open throughout the season. Between regular updates from Mutual staff to the various associations and from other associations to Mutual's board, there was a widespread effort to work together for the best interest of the Florida citrus industry. Perhaps the most obvious example of teamwork this season was in response to the late January freeze event. Mutual kicked things off by checking in with and sending a survey to growers in order to get a preliminary assessment of damage. With troubling results in hand, we met with the Florida Department of Citrus and other industry leaders to discuss the potential for emergency rulemaking to allow flexibility for affected growers to move their fruit to processors and packing houses. Knowing that there was still more work to be done, we continued to work with our elected officials, leading to bipartisan requests for USDA disaster declarations, as well as a bipartisan response in the form of the proposed TEMP Act. This bill, proposed by Congressman Greg Steube and Darren Soto, would direct the USDA Risk Management Agency to research and develop a temperature-based index policy for producers to select as an endorsement on top of their underlying multi-peril crop insurance policy. The hope is that this proposal may be included as a part of the larger Farm Bill. Other industry leaders weren't the only ones that we were talking to this year. Several of Mutual's board members and staff were hard at work sharing Florida Citrus's story with the media as well. From right here in our own backyard on Fox 13 Tampa Bay, all the way down under to the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, reports focused on a variety of topics ranging from the serious effects of greening and the record low crop forecast to the more lighthearted question of whether orange juice belongs on cereal. To each of you who took part in these interviews, we thank you. And thank you to each of the 21 members of our board of directors. We recognize that everyone is doing more with less these days, so the time, energy, and effort that you devote to ensuring the continued success and viability of this industry are greatly appreciated. To former board members Bill Lennon, Bill Lewin, Greg Nelson, Michael Prescott, and Danny Sutton, thank you for your years of service. To our new guys, Scott Boyd, Ned Hancock, V.C. Hollingsworth, Chris Moore, Corby Myers, and Christian Spinoza, welcome aboard. Hopefully your first year hasn't scared you off yet. I would also like to take a moment to remember one other board member who completed his time on our board in 2021. Pasco County citrus grower and nurseryman Tim Philman served the Florida Citrus Mutual Board of Directors for 7 years, representing our northern region. Tim passed away earlier this year, leaving behind a legacy of wisdom, wit, and a kind word for everyone he met. We thank Tim and his family for his service to our industry. Mutual wouldn't be what it is without our outstanding staff, our full-timers Melanie Burns and Kevin Matheny, as well as our consultants Francis Lane, Rusty Weigel, and Tamara Wood, continue to get the job done no matter what we throw their way. By now I'm sure you've noticed that the narrator of this video looks and sounds a little different than years past. That's because we kicked this season off with my predecessor, Mike Sparks, announcing his plans to retire. After serving Florida Citrus Mutual for the past 15 years and the Florida citrus industry for more than 4 decades, Mike handed over the reins in April 1st of this year and will officially say his final farewell during the industry banquet here at the Florida Citrus Industry Annual Conference. Having worked alongside Mike on citrus issues for the better part of his 15 years at Mutual, I can honestly say that he has been a true advocate for this industry, and I have personally benefited from his knowledge and mentorship. During his tenure at Mutual, Mike has led our organization and industry through unprecedented challenges. Under his leadership, we have weathered the storms, both literal and metaphorical, that have come our way. We thank Mike for his time, his talents, and his tenacity in fighting for our industry, and we wish him nothing but blue skies and tight lines in retirement. While the Florida citrus industry has endured more than its share of life's storms over the past 2 decades, it's important to remember that after the storms, flowers will bloom. Florida Citrus Mutual continues to be dedicated to riding out the storms with all of you until we can once again bask in the sweet scent of Florida orange blossoms.